but before I play the clip about the what's going on with the general, because I want to get back to what we were talking about, what you brought up about the ties to Al Qaeda and the takeover of Syria. But I want to just for maybe about 2 or 3, maybe 4 minutes, stay on this this assassination for the general. I want to play this clip, but I want to preface the clip with this. When one sees the because they have the video of it, of the general being killed and his assistant, and I started to play it for you guys, but no, I'm not going to play it. You guys can look it up on YouTube or on Rumble or Odyssey or something and look at it. But for them to know where he would be at his most vulnerable point right now, that is outside the scope of Ukrainian intelligence. So it had to be monitored by a more sophisticated intelligence agency for that to take place. America has eyes almost everywhere, trying to spy on everything. So she would be the prime candidate before anybody could lay the blame or point the finger at the United States or the UK. Immediately, Russia pulls the rug from under their feet to specifically point towards Ukraine and only Ukraine, which is absolutely crazy to me before an investigation was even started. But I want to play this. It's 2 short clips. One is a minute and one is
We all grieve upon the tragic death of Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov. We understand that this is an irreparable loss. We also understand that this was brought upon by a thuggish, terrorist, pro-fascist Ukrainian regime. This was surely a terrorist attack. You can't categorize it any other way. All the circumstances will be determined, and we offer our condolences. I am absolutely sure that all the culprits will be found. This will be done. Given what's happened, we have had a minute of silence in the State Duma to honor Igor Kirillov. And also we've spoken out about necessity to step up security and protection of top-level officials who have contributed and continue to contribute to our country's defense. Igor Kirillov was behind the Sputnik COVID vaccine. He's played a key role in exposing the US biolabs in Ukraine. I think that it was the reason behind his murder, and it may have been not only Ukraine's SBU, but also Western special services, but the investigators will uncover the truth. I find it hard predicting a possible reaction of the international community because it's been acting outside of reasonable logic and international law. But it should be there and should denounce the attack and demand a trial. The West has become an accomplice to all these Ukrainian crimes, and this one isn't the first one, unfortunately, but hopefully it will be the last time our nation's eminent person is killed by them. The West must understand that they're an accessory to crimes. Ukraine should have been designated a terrorist state long ago. There's been a row of murders, and what's happened now is another push towards this.
I'm going to play the next clip, but the MP in the Russian parliament doesn't understand. The West already knows that it is a party to the crime because they are the main culprits behind it. It's just that they don't care. And it seems like Russia, it's hard for Russia to get that in their head. But I want to play this right after that, and we'll come back with the comments.
It appears to have been a heinous terrorist act. I personally knew Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov. He was a prominent expert in his field, and perhaps unusually for an army general, he was a very open public personality. He appeared on TV and in the media outlining Russian policies in the field of combating the proliferation of nuclear weapons, chemical and biological. We cooperated within the framework of a parliamentary inquiry last year on the infamous biological laboratories organized by the United States in Ukraine and other countries, including post-Soviet countries. Stories of previous years, like this hoax about so-called Novichok in Britain, the alleged chemical attacks in Syria, which turned out to be staged. So all this combined, I presume, played a role. It was a political killing, apart from anything else. Perhaps it was timed to prevent or to undermine possible contacts between Moscow and the incoming U.S. administration, creating a negative background for any discussion on Ukraine and other issues. Who profited from this? Evidently, it's not only the current regime in Kiev, but also its sponsors on this side of the Atlantic and beyond. The background of state-sponsored terrorism in Ukraine, well, considering that Ukraine used to be a state, certainly is long enough.
A few things he said up in there. The end part was Ukraine used to be a state, but I want to rewind it a little bit for you and say that to find out in court or if there's a crime committed in the United States, what they do, they look at motive, opportunity, and who benefits the most. Those are some of the three main principles that detectives look at, and for them to have a suspect, they check to see if there's a rape. They go look and see if there are any citizens in that area that have committed rape before, and if there's a molestation, they see if there are pedophiles in the neighborhood. So when we look at this killing of the general, all one has to do is say the United States killed multiple Iraqi generals. They killed General Soleimani. They killed another Iranian general in Syria. They killed a Lebanese general. So this gives us a main culprit or a main suspect in this. Why, when it comes to geopolitics and international affairs, we see a lack of the applications of what a detective would do to solve the crime?
Well, I think Russia is approaching this very delicately because they understand what Biden administration is trying to do, because Biden administration is trying to poison the well for the incoming Trump administration. When Trump has specifically said he wants to end the war in Ukraine, he wants to have peace, he wants to have a phone call with Putin. This is why I think the Russian the people who are now speaking out publicly, they're trying to put the blame squarely on Ukraine. I mean, they understand this as well as we do. This is not the Ukraine war is really an American war against Russia, but they are trying to leave the room open for negotiation and for dialogue, because Biden is going to be out of the office in a month, and there's still possibility of some sort of rapprochement or even a deal worked out with Trump. I mean, they're leaving the door open. So they are not trying to. They're not. What they're trying to do is not to fall into the trap that Biden laid out for them, which is, to make this conflict to escalate the conflict to the next level. So this is why they're. I mean, they understand this is look, Ukrainian. Even if this is Ukrainian intelligence work, they are just cat's paw for United States. Because what have we seen? We've seen Ukrainians mercenary turns out in North Africa. It turned out in Syria. We know the Ukrainian drone operator played a big role in Syria, targeting the army generals of the Syrian Arab Army just before the fall of Assad's government. So how did these Ukrainians suddenly pop up everywhere in the world and in all the regions that has has almost nothing to do with Ukraine. I mean, but everything to do with a U.S. strategy to dominate. I mean, the Russians understand this, but they're trying to be diplomatic. They're trying to leave the doors open for future negotiation with the incoming Trump administration. This is why they're just squarely putting the blame on Ukrainian right now. I mean, their focus right now is to win the war in Ukraine, and to establish the facts on the ground. This is why I think, for Trump, like, I don't know what Trump's what his idea of making peace with Russia is, but right now we hear a lot of ideas coming from Trump advisors, that the people Trump have picked to be in his cabinet, and some of these ideas are just it's just totally moronic. They're saying, well, we'll turn the Ukraine conflict into a frozen conflict. I mean, if anything, Russia has learned its lesson about frozen conflict and ceasefire. They got cheated in Minsk agreement, Minsk 2. They again in Syria, they froze the conflict in Syria in 2020. The lesson from all these from the past is, you don't let the conflict frozen when you are on the winning side. You finish it. You finish the fight. That's what Russia intends to do. That's what they're focused right now. And by putting the blame also on the Ukrainian, it's also helped to shape the public opinion. They're guiding their own public opinion to support the drive to win the war in Ukraine. And that's what Russia is focused on right now, rather to expand the scope of the conflict to like a global conflict with the United States. So I think this is what's going on.